Hello everyone, I'm Daz, and this week I had to upload a couple of videos for Wednesday because with how dark and heavy the other upload is, I wanted to also give a word of encouragement in all of this and acknowledge the sacrifice that Jesus Christ made on the cross. Even though I know that Easter is a pagan holiday and it has been blended with Christian elements and themes, I still like to honor the idea of Jesus' sacrifice on the cross. And this is something that you can do on a daily basis. But one thing that sticks out to me is the crown of thorns. And I mentioned at the end of the video on the fires and the sacrifice, that was one of the items that happened to survive the fire. But my idea for talking about the crown of thorns does not stem from that. It actually stems from my walks that I've been taking every weekend. I got asked on a live chat a week ago about, do I exercise? And that's kind of a complicated answer, but the best thing I'm doing as far as exercise goes is taking walks. And one of my favorite places to walk is through our nature reserve and woods that we have in my town. And I really love this area because it's a contained forest in the middle of a suburb, but still it serves for a very scenic view. And I can remember my first time actually walking the trails. I listened to my brother and I went off the trail. And when I did this, I ended up getting my shoes muddy, trees hitting me because nothing was cleared. But one thing that happened is that the thorns from some of the bushes and trees ended up pricking my skin, and I didn't see it coming. I just felt something really sharp go in and just click, I got cut. And some of them didn't hurt until I had to pull them out and looked at them. And when they pierced my skin, because I remember trying to use a stick to make them stop poking me, the branch came back at me and hit me in the hand. When I felt it go in, immediately I thought about the pain that Jesus must have felt whenever they put these thorns into his actual head, and how much pain and how much blood that created. And when I think about that kind of sacrifice among all the other ways they tortured him on the cross, he was without blemish. He was the ultimate sacrifice. He was that lamb that, if you observe Passover or are familiar with Passover, a lamb is used because a lamb is without blemish. During Passover, you're not to eat anything with leaven in it for 8 days, to symbolize the Passover story in Exodus. And Jesus' Last Supper was based on a Seder. He was at a Seder whenever he had his Last Supper. He knew he was that lamb. He was fulfilling the prophecy. And it says in Matthew 27:29, "And when they had plaited a crown of thorns, they put it upon his head, and a reed in his right hand. And they bowed the knee before him, and mocked him, saying, 'Hail, King of the Jews.'" So the Romans did this to mock him. You can draw parallels to Exodus with the story of what happened in Jesus' time. Pilate was threatened by Jesus. He was gaining influence. His enemies, the Sadducees and Pharisees, were threatened by him because he was threatening the power structure. He did not resemble what they believed to be the king that they had long awaited. And they were more concerned with the traditions of men, with their way, that they wanted to see him go. And this was the one unifying factor, because Sadducees and Pharisees had their many divisions. But similarly, Pharaoh also, when Moses asked him to let his people go, he was upset whenever he heard the Hebrew God had said so. Of course, that was going to cost him a lot economically, but also there was just the idea that the Pharaoh of the time was a god king. Similarly, in Roman society, the king was considered a descendant of the gods. So not only did we have the idea of God's purpose needing to be manifested, but we had people who thought they were gods trying to stop and stand up to the real God. And when I think about this, it's just so beautiful how God demonstrates his power in both instances. In Genesis 3:17 through 19, connecting back to the Garden of Eden, "And unto Adam he said, Because thou hast hearkened unto the voice of thy wife, and hast eaten of the tree, of which I command thee, saying, Thou shalt not eat of it. Cursed is the ground for thy sake, and sorrow shalt thou eat of it all the days of thy life. Thorns also and thistles shall it bring forth to thee, and thou shalt eat the herb of the field. In the sweat of thy face shalt thou eat bread, till thou return unto the ground, for out of it wast thou taken. For dust thou art, and unto dust shalt thou return. So we see that one of the punishments for man was that they would have to work hard to eat. The ground would be harder to produce crops out of. And we see the mention of thorns and thistles. And some scholars have pointed this out, but the thorns that were on Jesus' head could also represent the sin. He bore our sins on that cross. He did it symbolically, he did it spiritually, and he did it literally with that crown of thorns. And I want to read this commentary. Here the governor's soldiers placed a crown of thorns on Jesus' head to mock him as the king of the Jews. Oh, if only they had known both what they were doing and the symbolism that their actions entailed. Thorns were not present in the original very good world, but the Roman soldiers didn't have any trouble finding thorns to place on Jesus' head. Thorns that were a direct result of man's original sin are now found in abundance in a world that is steeped in sin. What the soldiers unwittingly did was hugely significant. There is nothing random in the Bible. Every word that has been written in its page is significant. The crown of thorns vividly symbolized the curse of sin being placed on Jesus' head. It immediately takes the reader back to Genesis, reminding us of why Jesus went to the cross to take the penalty for sin on our behalf. He died as the perfect sacrifice for our sins, so that the curse that God had pronounced upon the earth because of sin can be removed for those that believe in him, and ultimately the creation itself can be redeemed. For the creation was subjected to futility, not willingly, but because of him who subjected it, in hope that the creation itself will be set free from its bondage to decay and obtain the freedom of glory of the children of God. Romans 8:20-21. Christ's actions will blunt every sharply pointed thistle and thorn as well as other effects of the curse. The Christian can shout, "O death, where's your sting?" So I really admire the sacrifice that Jesus made, and I'm very grateful. And he came to fulfill the law, and he was rejected by his own people, and he still made that sacrifice. But I just want you guys to think about that next time you see a bunch of thorns. And I hope that you felt encouraged by this message, that he was willing to pay that ultimate price. Thank you everyone for listening. I hope this message was encouraging to you. And be sure to check out this Friday's upload. And I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your week. Take care and God bless.